It is October 10th, the Chasing Dirt show with Jack Ellison here and our legendary co-host, Jerry Flug. How are you, Jerry?
Good man, legendary. That makes me feel old, but I'll take it. So
Classics
that's
old,
good.
classics old.
Welcome,
Legendaries
well, yeah,
forever.
welcome to the Chase and Dirt Show. I
And,
know we
and
have some new friends watching today because I invited a bunch
did you?
to like. So yeah, I think they should be watching. And if you're watching and you joined us based off a conversation yesterday, then thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Some
No,
young whippersnappers, Jack. Some young people.
I
So
love it. I love it. Well, make sure that those young whippersnappers like and subscribe. My kids remind me I've got
yeah,
to say that all the time. And if you don't know what we do, the Chasing Dirt show is nothing but focused on the commercial cleaning industry. And to that end, we have a special guest today, Claudia St. John with the Workplace
woohoo!
Advisors. Claudia, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Appreciate you
Delighted
very
to
much,
be
Jerry, and I appreciate you very much joining the show. And people are probably saying, how does Claudia in a place called the Workplace Advisors tie into commercial cleaning? So let's do this. Well, again, we keep it casual, but tell us who you are, how you got kind of sideways into the door with cleaning, and then
Yeah,
talk about really what your business is. We'll just take some conversations on that point.
yeah, my pleasure. I started the company about 15 years ago, and we were designed to work with businesses who were smaller, whoever was doing HR maybe wasn't an HR person, or was the owner of the business or the payroll person. And so we put together an offering designed by looking at that core business, but we go beyond that. We got involved with the janitorial companies probably about 13 years ago. We've been a partner and the endorsed partner of both BSCAI, the Building Service Contractors Association, and also NSA. So we have a lot of BSCs, building service contractors, that we've worked with over the years, and we do a wide range of either being sort of the fractional HR person for those smaller companies, or being the lead recruiters for some of the larger companies. We also do a lot of work on employee engagement and employee retention, which, obviously is a huge issue in this industry. So, and I've been a keynote speaker at BSCAI for many years. So I love this space. I love these groups. I love this industry. It presents real special workplace perspectives, and their unique challenges that I think are really exciting. It's a great industry, and I love working in it.
That's awesome. I think Jerry and I will. I've been working on a project, and you're now in that project. But
Oh, that's
we
exciting.
cannot say BSA enough as far as a contract cleaner. We say that probably 150 times a week, that you need to look at this and take a deep dive. NSA, even though Mike Conrad leads that, we still talk positive about that. That's a jab at Mike because, but,
Whoa.
no,
That's good.
Mike and I go back. But,
Yeah,
but
well, I
But
like
Jerry introduced me to you, and I love what you're doing, because as Jerry and I coach and mentor, and again, it's not something people think about because they're all focused on, I got to get new business out, I've got to get employees, I've got to do this, I got to do that, and they don't really think about that foundation. And Jerry and I talk all the time about a tree growing in two directions. It grows up, aka sales. It grows down with your operations, your people, your processes, and
yeah.
what you feel within your company is just a huge gap that people, the companies that we coach and mentor, below, let's just say below 3 million, really can't, they're at that point that they're below three. They definitely need some kind of assistance with, the HR side, but they just won't make that investment. And it's probably not a good investment, but what you bring to the table, and I'd like to dive into that, is a whole plethora of resources that you don't have to go all in with a full-time person. So
Yeah,
dive
we were
into that.
talking with one of your clients about a week or two ago, and they're just at that point where they need that strategy, they need that help, they need that expertise, but they're just not quite big enough to have another payroll, $60,000-$70,000 person who can lead them in that regard. So what we do essentially, we have 5 different practice areas, but the core one is we help BSCs with their employee handbooks, their policies, their procedures, any of that sort of technical HR compliance stuff. But we also offer a resource, any questions. I have an employee situation. I have a weird leave request. I have, the state just passed a new paid leave policy? How do I handle these things? So oftentimes when we're not there, a lot of these folks will go to their labor attorneys, and they will look at their attorneys for that sort of thing. And some of those attorneys may not be labor attorneys, and they're also very expensive. So we really fill that goal, that hole of being that that advisor for tactical, boots on the ground HR compliance stuff. And then we do recruiting. We do a lot of sourcing, not for day porters, not for janitors, but really more for regional managers, salespeople, operations, any of the back of the house accounting, HR. We do a lot of those types of positions within this industry. We have a compensation practice. A lot of businesses under 5 million, their compensation strategy is really whatever they can get people for. They set their prices, but as we know, compensation has changed a lot, especially for their non-janitorial folks. The janitorial folks, they usually they target whatever their contracts will allow. But with the increases in compensation that we're seeing now, we help them develop even just a position to say, where are you in the marketplace with your pay? Because sometimes that can inform, if you're at the 40th percentile for pay for the same industry or in the same geography as your competitors, then you need to know that, because then you can start working on some of those perks, like added flexibility or additional resources or part-time or full-time, whatever those programs, healthcare, whatever those programs are that can sweeten the pot if you can't match that compensation. And then we have an employee satisfaction, employee engagement, employee development. The same adage has been true all of my career, which is people don't quit their jobs. They quit their frontline supervisors and managers. So really helping them with some of those tools, not the technical, how do you do your job and how do you get others to do your job, but how do you communicate with empathy? How do you navigate conflict? How do you have emotional intelligence? So we do a lot of work with that. And then the last thing we do is behavioral testing, which we recommend for all positions, because interviews just don't cut it when it comes to weeding out, problem employees. So that's sort of the whole range. And I think what a lot of smaller businesses do is they rely on us for the compliance support. We sort of serve as a adjunct employee or leader for them there, and then they tap us for some of the more strategic. How are we going to grow this company, and how do we align our workforce for what we need to do to grow? And so we do both the tactical and also the strategic, which most businesses can't afford to hire and don't probably need that type of HR workforce, senior executive level perspective. They don't need that full time, but they need it when they need it. So that's really what we do.
Yeah, and I think too, Jack, I think the thing that needs to be pointed out with the workplace advisor group and Claudia and her team is they are very reasonable. Like, when I first started my company, I wish they were around, because I would have hired her in a heartbeat, because there's so many, even just the compliance side, and then there's SHRM certification, which is kind of like the doctorate of human resources. Having that in your back pocket for just a minimal monthly thing, it's so worth it. So my encouragement would be, if you're watching the show today and you're even under $2 million, this is a company that would probably be a perfect fit for you, to be able to really skyrocket that part of your business and get you to a place um, where you don't have that stress in the back of your mind. Normally, people under $2 million, they've got several stresses. One of them in the HR department: am I doing this right? And the other is customer A, B, and C going to pay me so I can meet payroll this week? Well, if you could remove some of that stress by having someone like Claudia and her team in your back pocket, it's a great thing. So I would encourage people. Not I'm just being a great commercial because I know what they do.
Oh, I'm loving it. Keep going.
Yeah, but because of what you guys do, having been an owner, the stresses that come with that part of it, even just being compliant, being able to go to a customer and saying, yeah, we're up to speed on where we need to be on the HR side of our business. And with our employees, they know this, they know points A, B, and C. That's a huge thing that separates you from being a guy in a van with a mop bucket,
Yeah.
because honestly, that's how a lot of people start, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not being critical of that at all, but there are steps you take to separate yourself and make yourself think like a bigger company, because you always have to think about that next level. Jack and I preach that all the time. If you're under a million, think like you're 5 million. If you're under 5 million, think like you're 10 million. So yeah, I love it. So do this. Tell us, what is one thing that you see that your company has benefited companies under $2 million, that has really helped them, coming from the same mindset that I'm talking, is what has really helped them to move their company forward faster, by just working with you guys, or maybe not even you guys, but having someone in HR role, because we hired a full-time HR person at 2.5 million. So
Mhm.
it was still like a little questionable. Should I be doing this? Um, but it helped us boom, in the long run. So
Yeah. Well, I love the question, and I think a lot of the businesses at about that $2 million mark or below, when they think of HR, they usually think of recruiting, right? So
yeah,
they have to fill that position. That's usually the first position they have to fill, which is unique. Most industries and most businesses don't have to do that, but because of the turnover, because of the nature of the industry, that's a position that's typically filled. And so a lot of these BSCs, even the big ones, even you'd be surprised, even some of the really big BSCs in the industry, janitorial companies, cleaning companies in the industry, they run really lean when it comes to their
yeah,
back office. When they're not they have a lot of workforce, but they don't have a lot of, sort of the operations, the support. And so we, even for, as I said, some quite large businesses, we serve as their HR department. So we coach and we train whoever is doing the onboarding, the I-9 processing. How are you keeping those files? Immigration is a huge issue right now. I-9 management is a top priority for a lot of these folks, and they don't necessarily know how to do it. And what happens oftentimes in this, we've been having a lot of conversations in this space because of the focus on it right now. They go back and realize, oh no, we had this one site manager who was doing all the I-9s for everybody in that site, and they were filling it out incorrectly. How do we fix that? What do we do about that? How do we address that? And so we are just a resource available, whatever the challenge is that comes up. And I'm just going to go on to I'm going to be shamelessly plugging plugging our services. The issue of affordability is actually a very important one to us. We wanted our services to be affordable so that small businesses, as they grow, don't miss out on having their people house in order so that they are compliant, but they also have the right culture. And that's the other thing I want to say about these smaller groups. You have a much greater opportunity to affect culture, to affect engagement. It's a smaller group. You have more of a family, and that is critical going forward. Our HR support plan, which is that sort of all-inclusive HR piece, is $189 a month. So even a company,
yeah,
of a million should be able to afford that. It's
yeah,
not much more than their
absolutely.
Netflix account, and we do that intentionally. It's a very robust program, but we tailor it to be affordable because then we are the resource that's available. Some people use us a lot, and some people just like having us as an insurance policy. But that,
Yeah, and
what
that's that's. Go ahead, Jack. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, and again, I'll bring up the website so we can see where all that
Yeah,
is.
because man, when somebody heard that number, they're gonna be like, okay, how do I get a hold of Claudia? I know we typically do that at the end, but yeah.
So we'll include this in the show notes, but the website, workplaceadvisors.com. So we'll include this in the notes. But where would they find your packages? Where would they find
So
all that?
if you go to theworkplaceadvisors.com
Yep.
/services.
Forward
So
slash
it's a
versus.
little bit behind a firewall. So /services. Uh, you'll see all of our menu of services. And so there's the HR support plan. But if you keep scrolling down, that's our very, very top level
Yep.
recruiting package. So let's go down.
You've
Let's
got
go down.
management sales recruiting. You've
Let's
got
go to
standard
this
recruiting.
one.
Got
So
job management. Yep.
yeah, so if you go like right here to HR compliance,
Mm-hmm.
um, if you are part of Root, and you just need ad hoc support, if you call us, we are available, even if you're not part of our HR support plan, for $185 an hour. So anybody within Root can contact us for that. That's the benefit of the association with you. If they're part of the HR support plan, usually all of that compliance support is free. So they can find out about it if they go to the workplaceadvisors.com/services, and they can also see more about the full range of services that we provide. Our pricing is very transparent. That's another thing. Businesses of this size, nobody has budget for HR. They don't want budget for HR. They want to be able to spend it on other things. So we really try to make sure all of our services are very transparent in terms of price, what you're going to pay, so that they know I can afford this, and it's not like a billable, like we're going to with the part of the HR support plan, we're not billing by the hour. It's free. So that also incentivized, we've learned a lot of the folks who are doing the HR function are hesitant to call if they think when they pick up the phone, it's going to incur a charge.
Yeah.
They don't want to be able to do that. They want to try to figure out and how to solve it for themselves. And especially if they're in multi-states. I mean, that's just complicated stuff. Not having to pay, it's automatically part of the subscription. They use it a lot more, which is also a great resource, because we train those frontline employees on how to do the thing. We're always trying to help them learn from every engagement that we have with them.
Let me ask you this, Claudia. So taking two buckets, if I'm less than $3 million, what is that first step you recommend? If there's something in your head says, I would like to just explore this, what is that? If you're less than 3 million, what is that first thing? I guess book a call with you first thing, but what what goes on when they reach out to you and I'm below 3 million? What does that conversation look like when you start that conversation?
I want to know why they're calling us. I want to know what the pain point is, what the gap is that they're feeling. And it may be that they now need a new handbook and they don't know where to go, or it may be that they're trying to figure out how to staff their HR function. Yep. And they have somebody doing recruiting, or they have someone doing payroll, but how can they get that expanded HR support that they need when they have an issue, or when they want to grow, or they have a project. And those projects might be things like a new performance evaluation system, or they might want to have an I-9 audit, or they might want somebody just to review their policies and procedures. One thing, and it's a bit more on the expensive side, but we scale it down for the smaller businesses, is an audit. Are your HR practices compliant? Do you have your posters updated, and are in the right location? Are you maintaining your files correctly? Are you is your compensation, do you have bonus structures, and are you paying the right wage and hour processes? All of those, it could be any one of those things, but it's usually some core HR insecurity that causes them to reach out to us, and that helps us.
And I think that would probably, and again, this is just my gut reaction, but I haven't taken a deep dive, but the bigger companies above 3 million, let's call it a $7 million company. A lot of the times they were below 3 million 10 years ago. Now they're at that 5 to 7 million. And Becky or Steve, who started with the company 10 years ago, became the HR person because they were good at doing that. But now they really don't have the and I like what when we first met you talked about this perspective. You're not just looking at one company, one business, one unit. You're looking at the industry as a whole. Right. But that's where you bring value to those larger companies too, is say, hey, listen, Becky and Steve are probably doing a great job, but maybe let's just check, right? Let's just make sure everything's kind of set for that next evolution, and that you're not opening yourself up for future liability or whatever it may be, right?
Yeah, and we have, I would say our core, the majority, and we probably have, 50 or 60 building service contractors that are regular members of ours, that are regular clients of ours. The vast majority, I would say, are in the $10 to $15 million range.
Nice.
And that's because we are a resource to whoever's doing HR who maybe didn't have that HR background. They were great at front labor issues, right? They can solve employees' challenges. They maybe are multilingual and are able to really do that connection that HR needs to do with their membership, but they may not be very good at doing the compliance piece. Or if they're in multi-states, or if they have a weird workers' comp situation, or whatever. If you have 2 people, you're going to have HR challenges. And the more that you have, the more they're going to be. And so um, I think we are an incredible value to the small companies, because they really don't have anyone
Yeah.
doing that, and they really need that support, and their resources besides us are expensive. But the bigger companies, they want somebody focusing on it. We track legislation. So if they're in multi-states or even in one state, every month we're going in to see, what do you need to know? What do you need to update? What's coming down the pike? The most recent big, beautiful budget act, whatever that was, the budget bill that passed federally. There's a new tax on or a tax exemption on overtime. Well, a lot of companies don't track overtime separately from their base pay in their payroll systems. What does this mean? How do we figure this out? What do we need to do? All of those, higher strategy versus just the tactical, how do I handle this situation?
One thing I think that, and you hit on it, is it doesn't matter the size of your company. You guys have packages that will help. And here's the thing: my passion is, I'm thinking about the company. This is where I was. I worked 8 hours in the office, and then I go out and work 4 or 5 hours at night. My first 3 or 4 years,
Yeah.
and I had a great one person in the office, and I had a great partner that we worked together. And we grew the company, from 12 to almost 300 employees. But that admin that was in the office, she was HR, she was billing, she was
Sure.
receivable, she answered the phone. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking to myself, I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds of companies out there that are
Yeah.
probably in that scenario.
Exactly.
And they have two really good options here. There's virtual assistants that are going through the roof now that are really good help and can help with the recruiting side,
Mhm.
for a fairly decent, and not very, it's very reasonable to hire VA for recruiting, and then to partner with the workplace advisor group and have a VA. I think as owners, you'd do that admin a really sweet favor if you
Yeah.
could get those two things going for a couple $100 a month.
Yeah.
So that would be my encouragement, because Jack, I don't know, I just feel like every phone call we're on right now, this is an area where, and every company we're coaching with, this is an area where they're lacking and they don't really know what to do, because they think it's too expensive to hire an HR group to help them.
No, I agree.
Well,
I don't think most people know that there's actually groups. I think that
Yeah,
you hear fractional sales, fractional CFO,
yeah,
fractional this, but I haven't heard fractional, HR too often. But I don't think a lot of the folks we work with, even the larger companies, know what they don't know, and I think that's worth a discovery call into
it's
itself.
true.
And I would say this, Claudia, and appreciate the time. This is insightful. Again, we'll put all the notes, the website with as well. But if you were to just speak to the overall audience, I'm a commercial cleaning business. And again, the thing that staggers me is the more Jerry and I talk these conversations, just HR is a huge burden. SEO, Google Ads is a huge thing. Just getting software for, clocking in, that's a huge, these are all these heavy lifting, and how can you take it off? But if you had to leave the listeners with three things that you're seeing, whether they just keep coming up, regardless of the type of business you're in. Commercial cleaning, let's focus on that. But what are those three things or those three trends that you're seeing that you say, hey, if this is not on your radar screen, it should be on your radar screen? I think I heard I9 should be definitely something, but give us three things that you say should be on your radar screen.
Well, I'm going to start with big and then I'm going to get to little. The
Yeah.
biggest one is that the data I just realized, I just researched that previously I had known that in 2040, we were going to have more deaths than live births in the United States. And they just updated that. That's going to be 2033. That's less than 10 years from now. We're going to have more deaths than live births. And with some of the immigration policies going on, those people that are doing the work are going to become more and more harder to find. There's going to be more competition for them. They're going to be more valuable and more expensive. So having that labor force, the compliance is one piece. So making ssure that you've I9s, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, there is a risk that you're going to have an I-9 audit. You got to get that in order. You got to get your core HR functions in order. And then you really need to think about your employee engagement, what your culture is, and how are you connecting with them. That not only helps you prepare for a future of a tight labor market, but it also creates culture that keeps people engaged. And when you're small, there's no time better to do it, because you can connect the dots between why we're doing what we do and what our vision, what our passion is, and how we can support the families that are part of our community and a part of our company. And so I think recognizing that the labor challenge is not going to get any easier, it's going to get harder. Maybe not in the next year, but in the next 5 years, absolutely, because the data are the data. I think the I-9s are a big one. And I think the other thing is, given the gridlock that we're seeing in the federal government, a lot of states are rolling forward with their own laws, with their own regulations. And a lot of small businesses, this is a common thing. Folks are like, oh, well, I treat this person, they're on salary. And they think that they have their own discretion as to whether or not an employee is classified as an hourly non-exempt employee versus a salaried exempt employee. Businesses think they have the ability to make those determinations. Those are very clearly set in law, and the mistakes on that are very high. And if they come in to do an I-9 audit, they're also going to take a look at your employee classifications. And that's what keeps me up at night for this population, for this community, is employee classification, making sure their I-9s are correct, making sure that they're doing what they can do, because there is a target on the janitorial sector right now, given national policy. So
that's helpful. And I think, the root, the root product that we are launching next month is the subcontracting network, matching contractors. So that classification is going to be critical. The agreement language, how you manage those relationships. And I think that's probably something you can help with, or at least provide guidance on as well, right?
I would encourage anybody who's looking to engage in multiple subcontracting relationships to reach out to us, just to help us see if they pass the sniff test, if you will. Will this pass that classification? Because just using a subcontractor doesn't release you from those obligations. They have to be a bona fide subcontractor. And if it can be determined that they're really serving as an employee and there really is no legitimate subcontracting relationship in there, you want to know that going into it. And not to say that some people won't continue with those relationships, but at least understand what your risks are. And we meet our clients where they are. So nobody is completely compliant. It's impossible to be so, but you just need to understand what risks you want to take, how you want to be buttoned up. You want to be are you very risk adverse? Are you very risk oriented? Everything in between is where HR serves a role. And the last thing I'll say about pricing is that a lot of folks go with ADP or Paychecks and use the HR function from that. That is incredibly expensive. We probably are 1/4 of the cost, and we're a boutique. There's only 12 of us. So you're not going to get some call center or some, new fresh out of college person who may not have gone through those experiences. So
love it.
We have our eye on these things, and we're thinking about them all the time.
This has been good. So we appreciate your time. I would like to, when we go live with the Route Exchange, I would love to have you, if you would be willing to come back, and let's just talk about those potential risks with primes with subs and subs with primes. I would love to just take a dive into that for 20 minutes. But
I would love that. That would
you
be
plant a lot of seeds in my head to think about, and I'm thankful for that. And Jerry, I know as well, so our listeners as well. But Claudia, with the Workplace Advisors, we'll put the contact information up, and we appreciate you jumping on the Chasing Dirt show.
Thank you so much.
And let me say this too. If you're going to Contracting Success with VSCI here next month in November, Claudia will be there, her and some of her team. She's going to be one of the speakers, as myself. And so you need to go to her session. Shameless plug again, Claudia. She doesn't pay me anything for this. She does not pay me. But if my session and their session are at the same time, well,
mine's a keynote. Well, I have a session, but then I'm also the keynote, the last keynote with Jill Davies from
oh, nice.
workflow.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So you'll get to see her. So
Yeah.
just and listen, if you get a chance while you're there to get with her, um, it's worth every penny. And just tell her this. Say you're an FOJ, you're a friend of Jerry's, and that'll get you a 10-cent discount per month.
I might even have some giveaways, like some mints or a T-shirt. You never know. If
Nice.
anybody from Root or who's listening to this comes and says, "I heard you," or "I'm an FOJ," or whichever J you want to say that is, then
Oh,
they'll
that's
get a
true. You can
T-shirt.
use either one.
How about that? You're going to get a T-shirt. And on the back, it says, "It's all fun and games until someone calls HR." It's a cartoon, and it's a woman calling HR on a man. I thought that was very funny. So
I love
we
it.
got to take
That's great.
things
That's
a little bit
great.
less seriously. Yeah.
Well, Claudia, thank you for your time. Jerry, we are off Monday because of a holiday, so we will not be on the Chasing Dirt show Monday, but we'll be back next Friday with the guest as well. And Claudia, this has been very informative. Thank you very much for your time and your information you shared.
Thank you. Happy cleaning.
Yep.